You ready?
I'm
Okay,
ready.
TV 79, you ready? Wherever you are. Chairman, you ready?
We are ready.
Fred's ready. Okay, let's call this meeting to order. Good evening, everyone. Today is Tuesday, October 3rd. It's about 7:30 p.m. Tonight we have a planning and zoning public hearing and a planning and zoning general meeting on the agenda. And then we have some guest speakers to go over. As part of the general, we have some guest speakers to go over a bunch of issues that we have here. So, starting right into it, the first item on the agenda is a coastal site plan review number 227C, floods prevention application number 254D, land filling and regrading application number 459A, site plan application number 253B, PL-23-116, Town of Darien, Weed Beach Park at 155 Nearwater Lane. The item is to propose to strategically improve the property at 155 Nearwater Lane to create a passive recreational area intended to integrate with the remainder of Weed Beach Park to the west and perform related site development activities within regulated areas. The improvements are to consist of open lawn areas, a paved loop pathway, and expansion of the beach area. New crushed stone parking area will be located off the east side of the existing access drive to Weed Beach Park and will be integrated with the remainder of the parking at the park. An existing boat storage area on the southeast portion of the site will remain. The subject property is located on the west side of Nearwater Lane, approximately 400 feet south of Shipway Road, and is shown on Assessor's map number 56 as lots 3 through 10 and located in the R1 residential zone. The public hearing opened on September 12th, 2023. The deadline to close the public hearing is October 17th, 2023, unless an extension of time is granted by the applicant. Pretty simple, right? Chairman, go ahead, give us an overview, sir.
Sure.
Please.
As you know, public parks are permitted use as of right in the R1 residential zone, which this is. About 10 to 15 years ago, the town bought property off what was then called Short Lane, which was off Nearwater Lane, directly to the south of the sewer plant. Since that time, the town has been operating it basically as part of Weed Beach. And tonight, you're going to hear more about what they're calling the Weed Beach Meadow and Trail Project as part of Weed Beach Park. It's called the southeastern part of the park. Because it's a coastal site plan review, flood damage prevention application, land filling and regrading application, you're here for a number of different types of application before the commission. We did refer it to a number of folks, so I want to outline what their comments were on the application. First was sending it to WestCog, Western Connecticut Council of Governments. They sent a memo dated August 16, 2023. The opinion of WestCog staff is that the proposal is of local interest and with minimal intermunicipal impact. Therefore, it is not being forwarded to adjacent municipalities, and the regional staff is making no comment. We also have comments from the state of Connecticut DEEP, which you have in your packet. Their 2-page letter was dated September 7th, 2023, which talks a little bit about a number of comments, and the applicant can tell you a little bit about, when they present, how they responded to the DEEP comments. We also referred it to outside peer review engineer Joe Canis of Ty & Bond. He has sent 2 memos. One was dated September 26th, and the other was dated October 2nd. We also have one comment from a member of the public, which we emailed to you earlier today from Ralph Hogan, who lives on Archer Lane. So that's a summary. There was an original set of plans, and the applicant submitted a revised set, which has a September 21st, 2023 date, which changed a number of things. Most importantly, giving us a little more clarification on the parking lot, which is now, I'll call it broken asphalt, and they were proposing gravel, crushed gravel with an asphalt alternative, they've decided only crushed gravel. They've given us additional clarity on the trees to remain and the trees to be removed, and they've added a little drainage swale as part of the plan as well. So Joe Canis has not come back to us with final feedback and input on those revised plans. But what we thought we'd do is get everything to the commission tonight, hear from the applicant, hear from members of the public, see what comments and questions the commission has about this project, and maybe continuing into next week just to button a few things up.
Okay, let me ask you a couple of threshold questions. The plans are dated the 21st,
Of September, yes.
right? Then Canis reviewed it on the 26th.
Yes,
So those are the plans are been old, and then he came back on the 2nd. So is there a new set of plans?
there is no set of plans responding to the October 2nd comments.
To the October 23rd comments that were answered on October 2nd.
Right, right. So what they've done is, and I think the applicant can answer this, but Joe's, for example, the drainage was one of Joe's questions. How are you handling drainage? We have to deal with water quality because we're right on the water. We don't have to hold back water. So one of his questions was here relative to stormwater maintenance plan. And I guess they had also submitted a supplemental report from Dan Biggs, which you should have, and I don't have the exact date on that. We have September 28th. It's a memo from Dan Biggs of Weston and Sampson responding to Joe's comments.
Okay.
So a lot of his comments were responded to via memo. A lot of them were relative to, for example, detail on the type and size of sand to be brought in. Because we not only need to know that for the commission, but when they go out to bid for the project, it's important to know when you put a quote in for sand, what does that mean?
Is it clean, sanitary sand?
Right, is it thick, chunky, whatever, measured diameter. So again, it's drilling down to some of the details. I know Rick Talamelli sent in comments, especially relative to flood concerns. Again, all the work is in the flood zone, below elevation 13 or 14. It's literally right on the water. Part of the plan is to expand the beach, which will give a more, so they'll be bringing in sand to expand the beach.
So
There'll be a walking path.
we're going to find out if we're going to get more plans or not.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Sir, welcome.
Thank you. My name's Dan Biggs with Weston Sampson. Happy to be back out of town. We work with Parks and Rec and Pam's team on a number of projects. This is hopefully a project that we'll see move forward since it's been on the town's ownership now for a number of years.
It's been on the docket for over 20 years, I can tell you that.
Yeah, so hopefully we'll get to the conclusion. Forgive me, my computer wasn't syncing in, and hopefully.
It's been on the docket since 2006.
I don't want to. Okay, so I'm gonna step aside and just hold the mouse. So a little bit about the project where we are. Lee Park. We're on what was formerly the 4 short lane parcels down here. The paddle huts over here, existing courts in the pavilion, right along the water. So we're really looking at this area in red, adjacent to the wastewater pump station.
And do you know how many acres that is?
We're roughly at a 5 acre, about 4.9 acres is within the red area right now.
Okay. So, and when we get to your memo, you're eventually going to show us how you get to the 4.9, right?
Yep.
Those numbers don't add up.
So the site, like I mentioned here, was formerly a residential property that was acquired by the town. Has been used for many years by the Darien junior sailing team. As you see, their boats down here in the lower right-hand corner. There is an existing asphalt driveway that extends parallel to the beachfront back to where they store the boats. Former short lane is here, the remnants of that used to go to the residential properties that I think during one of the storms, they got washed away, then demolished, and then became basically a untouched land for a number of years, but Parks and Rec has been maintaining it now for a number of years in terms of mowing and general cleanup, just to keep the property usable, or make it usable. So overall, our goal is to create a usable space for the town to use to add to the current Weed Beach Park space. First is to remove anything that's undesirable. So there are remnants of asphalt that really aren't useful for current uses, but really to make the space better for park users. There's a number of debris. I think some of it has been cleaned up. So some of this has changed with park staff ongoing, trying to bring this space back to life. There are a number of invasive species. So I'll show you on the plan. There's currently 4 wetlands on this parcel, 3 of which are up towards the front of the parcel along the sound side that are full of invasives. Then there's another wetland that's back towards the wastewater treatment plant pump station that we're going to enhance and eradicate those invasives, enhance that wetland area to make it into amenity. So we're mitigating all wetlands on site as a part of this project. And then the goal is to really have a pathway network that will be within this space for people to walk and to stroll or to sit in the lawn area. And eventually, a longer idea is to have a network within the greater Weed Beach Park that will connect into this. But that's a future phase. We're only dealing with this 5 acres right now. Looking to enhance the existing parking area, as Jeremy mentioned, is now a crushed stone, deeply compacted space, really formalizing that for users. And then lastly is to expand the current dune system, exists along Weed Beach, and also expand the beach area. For those of you that have been out there post some significant storms, currently the park staff will move a dune to block and to protect the area as necessary from large surges of rain, not rain or snow, water coming up into the park area. So the idea is to enhance the dunes that exist along the Weed Beach, extend them to have another resilient measure for protecting the park space within the town. So as many mentioned, it's been around for a number of years, but the town acquired the parcel in 2014. We worked with park staff on a master plan process up through 2018 for all the town parks. We actually initiated design of this project in 2018. We started preliminary design, had some kickoff meetings. You can see the list of who we talked to and started the process. Then that COVID thing came up after EPC happened, and we took a slight pause to regroup and recalibrate what our needs were, where we wanted to go. And since then, this year, we've reinitiated the project. We've been in touch with Eversource a number of times. There's utilities I'll show that run across this parcel overhead, want to serve those residences, as well as working with the Sewer Commission, which I had a meeting earlier today for their formal approvals. Reconfirming approval that they gave back in, 2019. And then we've also been working with the EPC officer to reconfirm what was approved back in 2019 as well. So we're kind of going backwards to reconfirm and check, but going through the proper steps to move forward with this project. We've also been in touch with DEEP on the database for state threatened endangered species and talking to fisheries to get their blessings and confirmations. As Jerry mentioned, we have those comments in hand that we're addressing and doing a little additional study for them. So the project overall, and I apologize I can't see it all at once, but you see how the top area is a restored wetland. As you enter in Weed Beach, I'll pull you in, you drive in currently on an asphalt path. This area here currently is, as I mentioned, the stone, crushed stone parking area. The goal is to reinforce this parking area with a stone swale for stormwater measures. Formalize it a little bit more with wheel stops so that people don't just feel like they can drive into the grass or into the lawn areas. The green area is lawn or turf spaces, so having a call a great open lawn area that will be overseen to view out into the sound with a pathway network that would wrap around this and then connect into each of the beach areas. The beach would then be expanded. It currently is approximately in this general vicinity right here, so it's not doubling, but significantly adding to the width of the beach to be consistent with the rest of Weed Beach. Now we're wrap all around the whole front of the property, and then extending the dunes which exist along the Weed Beach parking areas to really enhance that resiliency along the new lawn area. I mentioned the junior sailing team having boat storages. We're going to be replacing that space in kind. We've talked with them as well about what their needs are for storage of their 30 or some boats. So we provide that storage on a gravel paved surface, which is basic gravel with a honeycomb material, reinforces it so that they don't have to have asphalt. It can be usable to roll the dollies for boats in and out of that space. There is currently a wetland, tidal wetland off into the sound that we're not touching, just that's staying as is. So some of the contents of what the project includes. So our project area is about 4.9 acres. The loop per se is about 1/4 of a mile. So imagine one loop around the track, really is what that loop is. Current parking area is about 57 stalls, and we're keeping that as is with 57 stalls, but having 3 ADA parking stalls to be compliant. There are a number of trees on site. Currently there's about 92 trees within the whole area, made up of a variety of species, but not unfamiliar to a typical residential parcel having maples, oaks, cherries, pines, sumac gets in there pretty easily, cedars, locusts, and walnuts, some of which are not very desirable. Within those 92, there are 69 of them that are 8 inches and greater. As you can see here, we're moving about 52 of those trees. It's primarily due to this open lawn area, which is going to be grass space, that due to the grading that happens in this area, we'll have to remove those species. Of those removed, there are a number of dead species, invasive species as well, that really aren't doing that very successful at this point. But we're going to preserve 17 trees that are 8 inches and greater, and adding additional 35 trees that are 2.5 inch caliber or greater. And there's a number of evergreens in the area that would be 6 to 8 feet tall as well. So total proposed trees is 52.
And that's just in that one section, if you can point to it.
The green is what really we're talking about, the 4.9 acres that we're.
Right, but it sounds like you're creating a forest. Is that the wetlands piece, the dark green?
There's the select trees in this general vicinity, select throughout the lawn area.
Oh,
the wetland is vegetation, some trees in there, but not going to be forested. There's a number of trees being added actually into the buffer. So Nearwater Lane is just here off of the street. And we do have a number of trees that are not actually located at this point, but as we're starting construction, we're going to identify where those trees will be located to block those potential views, the undesirable views for some, working with the Parks Rec Commission on where those will be located. So we'll select those and locate them appropriately within the parcel. There are a number of locusts and sumacs in this vicinity that will be thinned out, so once they are removed, we're going to have a good idea as to the undesirable views in and out of the parcel concerned by adjacent residents. I mentioned there is overhead. So additional to the trees, there are dune and wetland plantings. So the wetland is going to be eradicated from invasive species, replanted and reseeded with a wetland seed mix. And then there'll be shrubs that will go around the perimeter as well. Primarily, we have concern of grazing geese. We want to have no flight paths into wetlands. That really is our plan. That will really enhance that wetland space.
How do you accomplish that?
Pardon me?
How do you accomplish that?
So one thing is that we make it so that a goose does not have a clear view into where they would want to go to graze. Primarily having vertical obstructions. So if there's any chance that a predator could be behind a shrub, they will steer away from going into that space. Now, having the space active is going to be a good benefit as well, where if people are active, people moving, again, geese are fairly stubborn, that they can walk around the space, activate it, it makes them comfortable, is a good solution. There's no promises, I can tell you that much, as geese are not nice friends to park spaces. Addition to this, the Pollinator Pathways program is looking to have additional planting areas, working with the commission staff. They're looking to find places, so they're going to add more trees beyond what I'm mentioning here in terms of vegetation proposed as part of this project. There is a current utility pole that basically runs in the general location of this pathway right here. Working with Eversource, we're having that line, overhead line undergrounded to tie into the current undergrounding handhole in this location. So removing the overhead utility poles and having a new pole located here at the short lane terminus per the requirements. That then the utilities will be undergrounded and then protected going up to the overhead power lines. And
What does that serve since the houses are gone?
it serves the pavilion at the existing Weed Beach.
Oh, so the power's going that way? not
Yeah,
this
so
way.
power's going from Nearwater Lane across here. From this point on, it's currently underground across the parking lot.
Okay.
So Frontier is also working that process with us as well. I would just want to mention there's no additional lighting adding as a part of this project, so it's all just a dawn to dusk use. Any lighting would be what's already in Weed Beach Park existing. Currently, for stormwater management, looking at having the lawn allowing infiltration within this space. Parking lot will be stone, crushed stone, with a gravel stone diaphragm, generally on this edge right here, as another measure to handle runoff that goes in the current stormwater system. There are catch basins along this existing parking lot that we're going to reuse. So the system is almost as is now, just with additional storage and water quality infiltration along that swale. Continuing along, we mentioned the beach and dune areas. So we're expanding the existing beach and adding new sand dunes. This material we've been working with park staff to match what they currently use to replenish the beach area. And this is the width that you see right now. And that same width is what will extend across the current parcel we're talking about.
Is that the pavilion in the background in that picture?
That is, yes.
Okay.
Yep. I mentioned the wetlands. Currently, they are filled with invasives, or eradicated invasives, expand and enhance those wetlands as on-site mitigation for the removals happening just off the page in this general vicinity. If you walk down there, you go down the driveway, there's a stone retaining wall right-hand side on the water side. The wetlands on-site view is off to the left of the asphalt pathway. And then I mentioned the boat storage area for Darien Junior Sailing, 30 boats currently. They have about 22 Optis, 5 420s, and 3 chase boats. You'll see other boats there now, but we're told that they're going to remove those, so they'll have a clean slate to have their boats that they do use in this parcel. They have a number of racks where they stack the Optis because they're light enough, and they have some trailers, so that would all be located during season in that gravel storage area, paved area. But still functioning as they current operate today. Here's a potential view looking from the existing parking area to the lawn area. And forgive me, the backdrop, it does not show the residences along Nearwater Lane. So that would be just in the vicinity of the tan in the background. Again, continuing the dunes with the same species that exists along the dunes now would be the plan to continue that wrap around the beach area.
So you're putting seagrass inside the dunes you created?
Yeah, so we're using the same variety of perennial and grasses that exist in the current dunes and enhancing them all around basically in this vicinity over here.
Okay.
Yep. And that's all I have at this point. Open to questions.
Who wants to go first? Ladies first? Want to go first or go last?
You know, most of my questions are centered around Joe's comments about drainage. I'd love to, if you have any, if you'd like to take those on and address them, or is that something you're
Let's
not
take-
quite prepared to do?
Well, why don't we take that on the end?
Okay.
Because that's obviously that's a big thing, and that's an
Yeah.
open item. Anything else in particular?
That and do we need to do an analysis on change in wave action, even though it's beyond the CAM level?
You mean in terms of erosion, or more in terms of making sure the project doesn't affect flooding on adjacent properties?
Yeah, I'm most concerned about that.
Now, Dan, we talked a little bit about that last week, and you were going to follow up with, I think, an engineer from your firm.
Yes, yep. So we looked at that. So there's kind of two things. One is during storm events, a wave action
Yep.
of this area. We are filling in the low area. So there's a concern with if you fill in the low area, where does that water then go, right? So overall, to the greater sound, this area being, this fill is very minor or small,
Sure.
having negligible to no impact to surrounding properties. The dunes are proposed to act as the current dunes act along the existing weed beach, where during a storm event that the wave action comes up, instead of flowing through and basically going out into the lawn area where the depression area is now, they actually would be pushed back into the sound. So functioning, I think park staff can attest to this, the parking lot that has the dunes actually is protected a lot during storm events. You might have some sand that erodes and washes into the current parking area that they have to sweep or clean up, but there isn't a wholesale flooding of that park area. So that would be the same thing happening with this grass area, where the water comes in, it has that resistance to stay within the sound and not flood and spread, thus potentially flooding into Nearwater Lane or elsewhere within the park area. The other concern of the filling of the wetland area, the low area, is what is that volume? In the grand scheme of things, it's bringing grade back up to where the current parking lot is. So currently the water comes in, it settles or it fills up. But being the sandy matter is, there isn't actually a lot of storage there. It may seem like a lot of volume, but the water is sand, porous. So water is coming in and then filtering down. The same would happen with the lawn area of the dunes, where the water flows in. If it did get past the dunes, it then would go into the ground. So overall concern by us is that there wouldn't be a concern for adjacent landowners, any different than what it is right now in terms of how that property functions during storm events or flood events. Due to the volume is very negligible compared to the greater volume of water along that sound.
Okay, so in terms of your adjacent landowner, your primary adjacent landowner where you physically touch is the Noroton Bay Beach.
Yes.
If you can go back to that. You're adjacent to yourself, right?
Yep.
And then if you go to it, I don't know, maybe you have a bigger one. That's okay.
Right. So here's the.
So right above where it says boat storage, right next to that, that's the backside of the Noroton Bay Beach.
Correct.
Okay, so the water's not going to go that way, is what you're saying?
The water there, the grade is about the grade here at this edge is not changing any different than what it is right now,
Right, 'cause-
relative to the Noroton Beach Club. Here is in this area, that's what's changing, matching the current Wee Beach parking area.
Right, okay. Because, I mean, I've never seen one beach flood onto another beach. They all flood the same. You know, I don't know if it's possible to flood a beach. But now, relative to Nearwater Lane, is there I would say a depression as you get closer to Nearwater Lane, like a swale going down along the Nearwater Lane side?
Are you referring to this vicinity right here?
Correct, exactly. Today there's an existing split rail fence along
Yeah.
Nearwater Lane.
This grade from Nearwater to here is pretty level per se. There isn't a depression there. And the grades that we're tying into are tying within our parcel. So we're matching the edge of those grades before the tree limits, because we're not disturbing that edge of the forest as you see in the brown.
Right, so that's staying the same.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if you're gonna flood to the east, you're flooding Nearwater Lane. It's just the south, you're flooding the Bay Water, the Noroton Bay Beach, right? We just talked about
Right
that
here.
a second ago.
Yeah.
If you're gonna flood to the east, you're flooding a road. And I'd be shocked if the water can get that far. Right, because it's gotta go
Yeah.
across 2 acres of land
Correct.
to get there,
Correct.
right? And if you flood to the west, you're flooding a parking lot and Weed Beach.
Yeah, and from experience, I think from staff saying, you know, this is pretty protected, does not flood. I haven't heard of that. I've heard of where they had a very low spot right in here. I don't know what storm it was, but I remember hauling in some sand to barrier that edge right there to protect water from flooding out this existing, the driveway that's down in here. I don't remember what storm that was.
That's exactly,
Yeah.
There's been a few where sand goes.
It's, if you want to talk about it, you're more than welcome to, you just gotta come to the podium. That's all. Just identify yourself to the podium.
Pamela Gary, Director of Parks and Recreation.
Welcome, Pam.
Thank you. So happy to be here. This has been going on for a very long time, and I think our commission has been so mindful of really trying to make a great impact with this property that the town invested in. So our staff, at times, the sand now currently will go over that rock wall and onto the asphalt drive that goes.
Can you point where the rock wall is?
That goes, there's a rock wall.
Yep, that's when I drive down and my car gets stuck.
So this will, the sand will come over here and bury this drive. So our staff has to come in and bulldoze it back.
Yep.
So that's about the only thing, but there's virtually never any flooding where the dunes are now. It's very
Right.
protected.
So you're creating the dune in front of your new walking path or biking path or skateboarding path, whatever you want to call it. Okay.
And since you've created those dunes, have you seen increased blowout on this area over the stone wall?
Well, we don't have the dunes there, they're here currently.
I understand, but
Yeah.
when pre-installation of dunes versus post-installation of dunes, have you seen a change in the way?
Oh, definitely.
And where does it, did it,
In terms of the protection over here,
understood,
Right,
but
and
does
then-
more get deposited over there?
over here, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when you increase dunes there, where do you anticipate the extra sand to get deposited now, since it won't be going to either of those locations?
I would say probably the action that's happening is when the storm is coming, it's coming in and out, right?
It's gonna
So
hit the dune.
Currently it's currently hitting these dunes. Currently it's coming here, and at this point is the wall that drops 5 feet. So the water comes in and splashes down and carries this sand up, and then actually here she's having to remove that sand. I think during storm events you have piled in this vicinity because there's a low area where the sailing club rolls their boats in and out, that they actually blockade that to protect water from coming in and wrapping around to that driveway. I think
Okay.
that's more the action parks
Right.
does during a large event. So they are seeing, by removing that wall, we're now protecting or stopping the water from coming over and creeping over the wall and filling up what's the driveway there with sand. Now it's gonna come in, wash into the current dunes like it does in this vicinity here.
Can you flip to a different slide where it shows, because, I mean, I get what you're doing, but I want everyone else to get it. If you switch to a different slide, where it shows the
Subdivisions, yeah.
the rock wall and the
Yep.
existing.
Yep,
So-
I know.
So
I'm
that
looking
is,
I'm looking more for a survey slide.
that's post-storm condition. That's actually the rock wall right there, covered by sand on the backside that pushed over the wall. So you would drive here, in the driveway to where the boats are being stored just back here.
Well, you couldn't drive there.
You couldn't, yeah. You would if it was not sanded by a storm event.
So now that area is going to be beach.
Beach and then dunes to the left.
The dunes to the left of it.
Yeah.
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 So the rock wall's coming out. If you went to
Yep, yeah,
the rock
yeah,
wall's coming
yeah,
out, the beach
yeah.
is coming down. Okay. George, want to go next? Any questions? Major?
I'm just focusing on that same issue, because I was down there on, I think Sunday, and it must have been high tide, because there was not much distance between that wall and the water at that point. I mean, 6 feet, maybe?
Yeah, it gets pretty high.
Gets very
Yeah,
high there?
yeah.
And it's not a high wall at that point. So I was just concerned that it would be awfully easy in any kind of storm for that water to come over. But I hear you saying that you're gonna have dunes. But where will the dunes be relative to where the wall is now?
Yeah,
Pick a different slide. Pick a survey slide.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's a little bit better.
Yep, so
Now, on there, with your cursor, see the existing dunes
Yep.
to the left?
Yep, yes, yep.
That dune line's gonna come over. That whole rock wall that we're talking about is all now gonna be, how wide's that beach?
Yeah, so this rock wall is being removed. The beach will be extended back to approximately this location, and then these dunes are actually in line wrapping this back to here.
The dunes are back
Yeah.
there?
Yeah,
Okay.
so that's where you're creating it. How deep is the beach now? 20 feet, 20, 30
Not
yards?
on high tide.
Not during high tide. Here, this is probably 20 feet, I'm gonna probably guess. I have to measure it,
So it's
but
7 yards.
yeah, I believe 60 sticks in my mind, 60 feet for some reason when we were looking at width of beach continuing that across.
So see the parking area where the boats are now,
Yes.
right? That whole section is not gonna be beach.
Beach will come back up to here.
Yep.
Yep. And then
So
a
that,
dune.
all that asphalt's coming out,
Yep.
the rock wall's coming out, the
Correct.
road's coming out, everything's coming out, and beach is coming out.
Yep.
And then the dunes that he's talking about are way back here.
Yeah.
It's even, yeah, I think it's even further back, Pam.
Yeah, back in here, right.
See where the red dotted line starts on the left? The
Yep.
dune should start
Start
there
there,
and
yeah.
connect across.
What is the delineation, or is it our responsibility for the private property, which is the beach of Noroton Bay? You know, right now, there's kind of a natural kind of delineation or buffers or barriers because the beach narrows out and there's parking and Darien's junior sailing. But when we expand this and create this crescent size, and then all of a sudden, all right, you can't go here, that's private, but this is public.
Yeah.
Have you thought about how
There's a
that,
fence that delineates it now.
hmm?
There was a
Okay.
fence that delineates.
And that you anticipate keeping that?
Yeah, we're not removing that on the edge.
And that belongs to the Noroton Bay or the town?
I have to check the survey to identify whose it is. Yeah.
But there was a gate entrance, so for
Yeah.
those residents.
You
they
envision
could go
all
right
of that
through.
to remain the same?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
If you go to the layout materials plan, you can see on the Roten Bay side
Yeah.
of it, it says
Yeah.
chain link fence. This is the fence you're talking about.
Yeah, and that's to remain.
Right, that doesn't, because
Right.
that's not even our property.
Thank you.
Okay. George, did you?
Good, thank you.
Mike, anything special?
No, I'm good.
Adam?
With the wetlands inside of Long Island Sound, is there any concern with the addition of so much beach or sand over there to create the larger beach, of that being washed into that and potentially negatively affecting it? I know you're not touching the
Yeah, yeah,
inside,
I
but
understand.
we're adding a lot of loose sand, so
Sure.
like it can go both ways.
Understand. I do not have concern, we're in conversation with the fisheries, which is not necessarily the wetland itself, but to understand if they have concerns. We haven't heard back from them yet.
Okay.
We just are starting that conversation,
So somebody's reached out to them.
Yeah, so in our database review, we talk about plants and animal species, and fisheries is one we have to coordinate directly, specifically about this project.
Okay.
We did coordinate with them back in 2019 on the whole search. That time they had no concerns, but staff turns over, so
Right.
we're looking at that
Okay.
closer.
Yeah, because we're adding a lot of sand
Sure.
to
understand.
this area for sure.
And no functioning much differently than the rest of the beach, so, but yes, we're
Right.
doing precautions to protect.
Okay, so on that plan there, can you point to where this wetlands is? I've never heard of a wetlands being inside the Long Island Sound.
The
That's
the
first
tidal
one.
wetland?
Yeah, the one that's, it's on the survey,
It's right about here, yeah, and there's a picture of it.
That's it, it's kind of blocking it.
because it's outside of your 4.9 acres.
It is, yeah,
Yeah.
our limits,
Yeah, go back, that's good one, that blue one. Okay, keep going, keep going.
Yeah.
See, that's where the wetlands
that's a
is.
little pocket
It's
down
weird,
there.
isn't it?
Yeah.
I've never heard of wetlands. I mean,
Inside.
to me, it looks like an oyster bed.
Tidal
Kinda.
wetland, yeah, so our limits
That's
of
how I
work is
think of
actually
it, like
back
an oyster
here.
bay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 So it's not, it's in there today, it's gonna be there tomorrow, it's always gonna be there. But I mean, I get your point that if you're filling in sand, the sand could get washed out
Into
to
that
sea,
thing, yeah.
into that thing, and
Exactly.
then it's not wetlands in 10 years.
Get rid of all those rocks.
Yeah, exactly. Makes the beach bigger. How many lifeguards you gonna put here, Pam?
Oh, well, seriously, on that note, I was just thinking, you know, you probably need a defibrillator down there or something, because it's gonna be a pretty good distance from the lifeguard stand.
We currently do have
You do?
defibs
Oh, good, already there?
on
Good.
site.
Well,
Okay.
But
Like-
yes, indeed, we would need a few more than
we're not part of the operations committee, we're the planning and zoning committee. You
And
want
that-
lifeguards, you can have lifeguards, you don't want them?
The path that will lead to the new boat storage,
Yes.
that's gonna be wide enough for a car to go down? Just wanna,
Yeah, so we have in this section right here, a 10-foot wide path, and working with the junior sailing team, they're fine with access. I don't know how often they actually move boats now, besides once early
Yeah,
season, end of
it's
season, maybe for competition, may
Grades or
take a
something.
fleet out or not, but they're accepting they like the plan and it works for them, so.
Yeah, I don't think it would be an issue, like getting boats in and out, they're not moving them a lot, but like, you don't wanna make that path like a walkway 5 feet that they can't drive a car down.
10 feet wide, so a car can operate and the radii are gradual enough that you can make those maneuvers with a trailer.
And our staff still needs to get from A to B to take care of the property as well.
Yeah.
So in terms of big picture, this looks a lot to me like a path that's at Highland Farms.
Wider.
It's a wider path because Highland Farms was, and that's your only impervious surface that you're putting on the property.
Correct.
That's it.
Yes.
So you're actually, if you did the net,
Yeah.
if you did the
Removing a
net,
lot.
you're,
We're reducing.
yeah, you're going
Yes.
way down. Because the parking lot where the boats are now is coming away, and the rock
The
wall's
road,
coming away, and
yeah.
the lousy road that my car gets stuck on is going
And we
away.
have the 3 pads for ADA, which is kind of impervious, so.
Great. Relative to drainage, and this is, I mean, we'll get into that in a second, we'll do it. Of that land there, now what you're calling open lawn, are you taking out like 6 inches or 8 inches of dirt and old foundations and all that stuff, and then gonna fill in? So the reason why I ask that is because I'm guessing that if it's all clean fill, it's gonna be cleaner than, it's gonna be more pervious than the existing conditions.
Yeah, so when we do construction, we're first gonna strip the topsoil and stockpile it. And all that will stay on site. Then we'll bring in clean fill. That'll be used to fill in the grading work, and then we respread the topsoil. It's good and bad. So we know there's invasive species, so we're in some areas gonna have to eradicate and hide or cover that and fill areas, and then have new topsoil to spread.
But there's still some existing old foundations there from the houses, right? And roads and driveways?
There are driveways, so the driveway off a short lane that comes in, like this one, coming in here, and tears in,
The houses.
yeah, that get moved. But in terms of other foundations, I don't think we have any.
Those are gone.
Yeah, they were moved when like, the building was moved,
Okay,
yeah.
cool, all right. I think that's a great overview and all that stuff. Let's see if we can get a little bit into the details on, or into the weeds on Joe Canis's
Yeah.
letters. The bottom line that I just wanted, I always go with the conclusion before the answer. It says, many of our initial comments have been addressed, but additional information is still requested. So that's as of yesterday. So obviously, it sounds like we're not closing this tonight.
Yeah, I think Dan is hopefully able to keep chugging away at resolving these. And hopefully we can get a next version out to Joe in the next day or so, such that,
Okay. We've seen Joe's memos, 100 times. So his first one, which is dated September 26th, he asks a whole bunch of questions. And then on his October 2nd, he gives his own answers to his own questions, which are in bold. Right? So
The
you want,
attachment we just got?
yeah, that came this afternoon. from
Yep.
him.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you have the October 2nd letter? that
Not in hand, but I
Can I give you my copy?
Fred's nice enough to share.
Okay. If you don't mind, if we could just walk through from page 2 where comments are, and you could whiz through some of them. It's like, number 3, address comments, asphalt parking lot is no longer proposed, so that idea is already off the table. If you could just whip through those, and then,
Sure.
it's only a couple of pages,
Yep.
and then we can say what's outstanding.
Sure.
So when we meet the next time, we can knock this out. I mean, it's beginning, it's all narrative, and it's, he just says what he says.
Under the comments section.
Yeah.
So you're starting number 1, page 2, from September 26th. Go ahead.
So, number 1 comments regarding Zone AE still exists, weighs up to 80 inches in height possible. Town has traditionally required applicants within coastal AE zones to provide discussions, analysis of impacts of potential wave direction. Recommend that it be provided for the subject applicant application as well. So we're going to address that in terms of what I talked about tonight about wave action and where that water will go during a storm event to relieve the question.
Because we don't want it to go into Nearwater Lane and flood out. That's a private road there, right, Jeremy? Nearwater Lane?
That part of Nearwater, as you go beyond the pillars, is private, that's correct.
Right, and they have their own sewer system in there, and we don't want to flood that
Well,
sewer
their own
system.
drainage system.
Yeah, okay. So you're going to deal with that next time. Okay,
Correct.
next?
Second is, I'll summarize, regarding utilities, working with Eversource here, suggesting having a gasket handle covers and gasket conduits. I have no objection to that. We're waiting to talk to Eversource because we use their products. So as we were working with them, we specified what they required of them to maintain for their products. So we will just coordinate them, making sure that that's compliant with them.
Okay, up to 3.
Number 3, again, remove the asphalt parking was an alternate early on, and that got struck from the project.
So that parking, again, to me, it seems like it's gonna be a lot like Highland Farms, where you're putting in the wooden stop barriers and gravel parking. So if the public wants to look at what the parking lot's gonna be like,
Yeah.
just drive to Highland Farms, there's 2 of
It
them.
may not be as coarse as the stone at Highland Farms.
Yeah, that seemed like it's course. You're gonna be more fine,
Yeah,
more compacted?
Yep.
Okay.
Sand dunes, so there's a question about the material specifications. We provide those, the gradation of sand, the source, and also work with park staff as to where the current get the sand from to match, and that was sufficient. How does a dune get keyed in? So to the online service, in our response, we share how the construction process happens when they are going to fill, they build a sand dune on top, and how that ties in from a grading standpoint. It's keying in is what we're going to do.
That's B, okay.
Sand fences, so this is partially a stabilization measure during construction and during stabilization. So we talked about how you fill or cover a sand fence and build the dunes up from there, so talk about that process. So that's sufficient for what Joe was mentioning. We talked about as you bring in fill, you don't just dump it and walk away. You do what's a lift. So we're constantly filling, raising, rolling, filling, raising, rolling. That process gives us more stable subbase. So we'll do that through the whole project. And we have actually a spec book on this project. So everything we're talking about is in a specifications about this size, as it's a municipally bid project. And that's
4D, right?
that's correct.
Yep.
Stormwater maintenance plan, we provide how the stormwater measures should be maintained post-construction, and that's in the report we shared.
Do you plan to inspect the existing stormwater that you plan to reutilize, just to make sure it's in fact operating the way you think it will?
So post-construction, there's annual inspections of any measures that are put in.
Okay.
We'll have to coordinate with staff as to if that's us, if it's the park
Okay.
staff.
Okay.
But our maintenance plan actually shares a step-by-step process that any inspector or
Yep.
park staff could
Okay.
do.
Just want to make
Yep.
sure. Got it.
Yep.
6?
6, was concerns about the ADA accessible parking stalls, layouts, and spacing. We revised those to provide for van accessible stalls and proper signage is the next one, making sure that's just coordinated with CONDOT specs.
So the plans that I have are dated September 21st, so, I mean, this to me looks legit, but I guess you're gonna make another set?
Yeah,
If
it's
you're-
a slight tweak on it. It's the general vicinity, the width is close, but the sign changes.
Because there's no sign for a van, I just see the cross.
Yeah, it has to
Okay.
say van accessible stall.
Got it, perfect.
Beach gradation, again, we provide that narrative, and that's in our spec book as well. The fill that's coming in, there's concern about what is the quality of fill, how to ensure it's clean. So our spec book requires that any material comes in, we have sampling done prior to coming to site. As the designer, we will review that submittal by the contractor, and we approve or reject it appropriately.
Can you just point on the screen of where most of the fill's going?
Yeah, most of the fill is going in this general vicinity right here, or where the current driveway and the low area is by the wetlands.
Okay.
Yep. Test from, catch basins 1. He asked about having a sump, and actually also requirements of having cover over the pipes. We have shifted our storm drainage piping to be outside of the drive parking area and actually adding a stone swale, so that would not be a concern with terms of wheel loading to the swale area. That also goes into the next question about water quality volume.
So that's number 9 you're still working on, right?
Number 9, yeah, we just have to update our plan. So we
Yep.
have it designed, and we gave him a screenshot of that. Just we're gonna have one set of revisions of the
I
plans.
saw that.
Yep. He asked about providing computations for water quality volumes, which you provided. Review the, so this was again, remove the asphalt parking area as not proposed, removed from the project.
Yep.
So, provide to bring computation to verify the reduction in peak flow rate identified in the engineering report. He's asking us to, proposed condition has less area than the existing condition. We're gonna check that. I'm not sure if it's just a typo in terms of our typing, but they will match.
Okay.
Yep.
Good.
Task, provide a DCIA tracking form. We received that, and we're gonna fill that out and resubmit that for review. And then the last comment was to ensure that the existing pipe system, drain system is in good condition, and we confirmed with staff they have had no issues over the years, and that was installed in 2009, I'm guessing, when the last revision of Weed Beach was done, so no known issues of those pipes.
So we don't have to scope that. It's not like Nearwater Lane and all that handling school stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good shape. 2009 to today is what's that?
13.
Okay.
14 years? Yeah, this thing's last for 50. Okay. The last thing that I wanted to go on my list, can you just help me with math? I'm looking at your memo.
Okay.
It says 155 New Orleans was 1.7 acres, and the next is 21 acres. Then
Yep.
it's 0.46 acres and 3.6 acres.
So.
You know what adds up, how you add up to 4.95?
Yeah, so this parcel, which I think is on sheet 101 plan set, is made up of multiple parcels within the town. So there's actually, the wetland is under control of the sewer commission. I don't know the number of that volume or that size. You have all the old short lane parcels that are residential properties that make up the smaller 1 acre parcels. And then the greater Weed Beach, which is part of this parking lot, is at 21 acres.
Okay.
So our dash line is a combination of all parcels to make up the project area.
Okay.
So they are doing work on sewer commission property
Right, which is, okay,
to the north.
got it. So it's the whole park, correct me if I'm wrong, something like 25 acres? Okay.
Yeah, 25-ish or so.
Okay. Anybody, any question for anybody else? Would anybody in the general audience like to speak to this application? I don't think we're missing anybody. Anything we're missing? So we're gonna
Continue the hearing
continue
next week.
hearing till when?
Next week, I think, I spoke to Dan prior to the meeting. He thinks he can get this fine-tuned by next week,
Okay.
just for these minor cleanup, what I would consider minor cleanup items.
Yep.
Our goal is by the end of the week before Friday's closure of the offices. So
We close on Thursday. You can email stuff in and post stuff to the website, but these guys
Yeah,
aren't here.
so-
yeah. So like 3:30 on Thursday is our deadline. What we're shooting for.
So
Cool.
what that gives us a chance to do is send it back to Joe Canis on Thursday.
He
And
works Fridays.
he does work Fridays and Mondays.
But Monday's a holiday.
I
Oh,
expect,
Monday is a.
No,
I expect Mr.
Not
Canis
just-
would likely
not
be
for-
working.
Not
Not for
everybody.
Darien.
Yeah.
no.
Market holiday.
Columbus Day?
Columbus Day.
No.
Bank
Schools are
holiday.
open.
Schools are open.
Just saying.
Schools are open. Town hall's open. These guys are
Wires
working.
don't go out.
Pam will be here. No, it looks like a great project. It looks like you checked all the boxes. I mean, you're taking out impervious surface, you're putting in a big lawn, you're putting in nice dunes that match the other one, there's seagrass going on. Looks like you're going down the right path. I think we're good. All right?
So what you're saying is continued to a week from tonight, which is Tuesday, October 10th, 7:30 PM in this room, room 206 at Town Hall.
Okay. I thought this was something the 17th, but that's fine. Perfect. Good. Yeah, we need an extension if it goes past the 17th.
Right,
We don't know that.
We should be able to all go together.
Thank you. Good job. All right. item on the agenda. That's the end of the public hearing. Now we're going to move into the general meeting. You're more than welcome to stay exactly where you are. You don't have to stay up there.
I'll be glad to stay here, or I can go to the podium.
Stay right there. Discussion of design business DB zone is the first item. Shall I read them all in now? Or are you gonna bang them
No,
all
we'll just do them one at a time, I guess.
All right, in our packets, we got a memo that is dated September 28th, 2023. It's from Dave Keating, and Jeremy and Fred to, I guess, to us. It goes into the history of the DB1 zone and DB2 zones. So why don't you take it away, anybody that wants to take it away?
Dave, you want to start?
Basically, the memo was written to provide a history of that DB1 and DB2 zone area, which extends from the downtown business district out to the east towards Norwalk before you get to the service business district. There were a number of old historic buildings there, and the Planning and Zoning Commission at one point tried to create the town tried to create a historic district there. And under the statutes at that time, the property owners had a chance to veto that based on the ownership of the area. And so that was vetoed. And so the Planning and Zoning Commission came up with the DB1 and DB2 zones that were intended to accommodate the old existing structures that were there and to make way for and to encourage business uses that would eventually take place along the Boston Post Road.
So just for a reference point, it's kind of from Sedgwick Avenue going further east, and the first house that would begin it would be the Junior League house?
Yep.
Which is for sale right now.
Is it?
Yeah. Okay.
So the Planning and Zoning Commission deliberately did not want to encourage the expansion of the central business district. So commercial sales and service uses in general were not allowed. But some special types of commercial sales and services that needed exterior storage or activity were permitted use. And that was partly recognizing that there were already some of those uses. There was a fruit and vegetable stand, and there were some other uses that needed outside activity. And so the regulations allowed for those types of special commercial sales and services to be maintained and for new ones to be created. And those types of businesses were not necessarily good in the downtown area because you didn't want to have a lot of exterior storage and a lot of exterior activity downtown. So the DB1 and DB2 zones served that purpose. As the Planning and Zoning Commission put those regulations into effect, there was also recognition that there were a number of typical retail uses, and so a special provision was put into the regulations that says those typical retail uses, like we're across from what used to be the nursing home, there is now the art gallery, Gary's Art Gallery. Before that, it was a retail store that had antique type of hardware for restoration projects and things like that. There was a pizza restaurant in that building. There were a number of other retail uses in that building. And so the Planning and Zoning Commission included that special provision in the regulations that said if you've got a retail use, you can maintain that retail use. You can also change it to a similar type of retail use, but each time we're going to review it to make sure that it's a similar level of intensity. So we're not going to go from a sleepy, quiet card and gift store to a very, very busy, active retail store. There have been many requests over the years for much more intense business uses, for restaurants to be established in that zone. We've had a lot of different inquiries because the property values in those zones are lower than in the downtown business zone, and actually lower too than in the service business zone. So people said, well, if I can get property in those DB1 or DB2 zones at a lower price and I can change the zoning or stretch the zoning, then I can get my more intense retail use or my restaurant use. Within the past few years, the Planning and Zoning Commission has been trying to clean up the regulations, and one of the things that the commission did was combine the DB1 and DB2 zones. And in the process of doing that, one of the unintentional results was that the language got changed so that retail uses are now permitted whether or not they had exterior storage or activity. And actually the word is there is may have exterior storage or activity. And that has led to more and more inquiries about, well, I want to put in my new retail business there. And the staff has had a lot of inquiries in that direction, but have resisted those. And personal service businesses are allowed by special permit, and retail businesses are allowed by special permit. So it might be appropriate, or it would be appropriate, that the commission consider, do you want to allow the regulations to stay the way they are and to have more and more typical retail businesses allowed in the DB zone from Sedgwick Avenue to Birch Road by special permit? Or do you want to kind of backtrack and say, well, wait a minute, it should only be retail businesses that have that exterior storage or activity as being an intrinsic part of the business use? I think it would be wise to do that and to kind of clarify and avoid
Which
that
one? You
unintended
offered two.
consequence that we've got now.
You just offered
You
two.
offered two, and you said it would be smart to do that, but I wasn't sure which one you were referring to in your opinion. Allowing more retail without storage or cleaning up the language?
Cleaning up the language, I'm sorry.
Right. I
Just want to
think-
clarify.
I think
Yeah.
back in the day,
Sorry.
one of the things that, when I first started working for the town, we talked about bulky goods, furniture, other big things that, you're not walking around downtown carrying your armoire, loading it in your car. It was, so there were a couple furniture stores down there.
Drexel County Furniture is, it was in
Trader
the
Joe's.
location that is now Trader Joe's.
Darien
the oth-
Assignment was
Yeah,
one.
Christman's was across the street.
And then the other one that came and went already, the one that with the purple guy, Modern something, Modern Home. What was that
Modern
guy's name?
Barn?
It was in, it's, the
Yeah.
building's owned by Calvi.
Oh, I think that might be further down the street, maybe?
Yeah,
Where
that's in
where
the-
Bella
110
Pietra
Post Road.
is?
Yeah, that would be service
Yeah.
business, yeah.
Yeah.
So here it's,
Where
trade-
does service, refresh my memory, service business start?
service business starts where Bertucci's is.
Bertucci's, yes.
And goes all the way to what is now essentially Complete Angler.
Yeah,
Starting the next block over where the Herald Shop used to be,
yeah.
and a liquor store,
Way back.
going west towards Metaplex.
Yeah.
So it's that north side of the street, south side of the street would be, there's a small Allstate building, couple doctor's offices on the south side of the street, Fairfield County Bank, where Dick Sanford's Electric,
Yep.
you remember that? There you go.
That I remember.
Yeah, that's going way back. yeah.
Going way back, and
You
then
can buy a fridge there.
all the way
Not that far
to,
back. I did the land lease for that.
Yeah, that's not that far
Wow.
back. That's Penny's building.
No, it's not. First County?
for Fairfield.
No.
Fairfield, yeah.
I'm saying Sanford Electric was Penny's building.
No, the electric one you're thinking of is Exit 11. She bought appliance store.
Okay,
Yes, I know exactly what you're thinking, Steve, yes.
okay.
But Steve, just to be clear, the DB zone starts at Sedgwick, so it's not the junior league building, it's Kelly,
It's
Yes.
Kelly Associates, that little thing next to it.
Julian Lawrence, and then the building next to it that we just approved a retail use.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
So,
jewelry.
like, I don't know
Yes.
why we're fighting retail use if we were
But
literally
that's-
just approved it.
But that was like a consignment retail use, remember? You
Right,
pick
It's
up,
still a retail
Right.
use.
yeah.
right. So that,
I don't,
She's actually designing things to
Yeah.
sell there, as opposed to consumption.
Right, yeah, I mean, it's
Yes,
like you pick it
yes,
up.
like a
what's the
consultative.
genesis of this?
Genesis really is when brokers and
Trust me.
Damn brokers.
I don't see it. Like, if we want to put brokers over there, then we shouldn't be putting brokers downtown in Corbin. Like, if we want to put banks over there, then we shouldn't be putting banks in Corbin.
But
Like,
what happens is,
we
you know,
need to be
when,
consistent in our plan.
Right.
And it seems like we're kind of all over the place.
right, when a property owner is selling, there's a couple properties for sale in the DB zone now. One is, or for lease, M&T Bank, which is Brian McKay's building. What used to be the Complete Angler right next to that is also for lease. I think is it the Junior League or Center for Hope? One of those is
Junior leagues for sale.
Junior League's for sale. I heard Pasta Vita, which was in the, right next to Orange Theory.
That's
Yeah.
gone, yeah.
That's, so we have a lot of inquiries about, hey, can I put basic retail here? We say, well, in the old days, it was just bulky goods. Now it's saying, which may include external storage or activity. So I think what we've come to the commission with is, how can we clarify this such that we can either change the regs if needed, put a proposal together, or continue to get clarification from you in terms of what uses are appropriate here. We, for the longest time, we have said the outskirts of town, the service business zone, right on the Norwalk line, we've said no, absolutely positively no retail. And the example I always use is, because then what would happen is exactly what happened in Norwalk. Walmart, Target, Costco,
Get the sprawl.
Barnes and Noble, it would be the sprawl. So we put the retail downtown, your Wee Mondines,
Yeah,
your
yeah,
toy shop,
yeah.
your Barrett bookstore downtown. Then what we call the kind of the transition zone, your DB zones, which transition you between downtown and your service business, your restaurants, your lawnmower repair guy, your, I need external storage for a fence company or a shed company, lumber yard.
There's some wacky proposals that come through.
Yeah, but I mean, none of that, you're not gonna put a lumberyard there.
No, the lumberyard would be service business.
Landscaper there,
Yeah. So,
with,
that would be permissible in that zone.
no, in the, I think in the building, where was the landscaper gonna go? In,
We-
next to Kelly?
one of those little houses on the south side. You know those old?
Isn't there
I
one
wanna say
already
the-
behind
Yeah, there's a
the
landscaper
Quest,
there.
That's
Quest
what-
Diagnostics, right? There's a landscaper behind that.
There's a landscaper.
Yeah, that-
That's a different, yeah, that is,
That's different?
That's a
not-
wont different,
that's a different zone.
Oh, okay. I thought
different
it
zone.
was,
But if you
No,
think of the
that's
small
Brian McKay's
houses,
I thought it was still part of the, I thought that address
Where
on
the salt
that,
cave is?
Yeah,
I thought that's on the post road, that address, when that put it in the DB2 zone?
right, but
Yeah.
the zone boundary line is behind the building.
Oh,
So
okay.
that is actually right.
In a different zone? Gotcha.
Residential zone, believe it or not. So we did have a couple inquiries about using some of these houses for landscaping companies. We're like, well, we really don't allow landscaping companies in this zone with, you know, the guy parked 5 big trucks, marked vehicles, and had lawn equipment all over. You're like, you know, that's,
it's an industrial use.
yeah. So we come to the commission with a recommendation to
So let's go in your memo where it says recommended next steps, let's talk about
Yeah.
that. Bottom of page 2.
prepare a formal proposal to modify or clarify the language, especially relative to commercial sales and service. Instead of saying which may include, because those are just wishy-washy. It's not saying yes, it's not saying no, which may. And is to give it maybe more definition in terms of, in the old days, it was bulky goods. I think for a while we used that phrase.
Yes, that was one category. So if you had a furniture store that was, or an appliance store,
Yep.
those were big bulky goods. Versus another category was uses that needed exterior storage or activity that might be for children's play equipment and things, which also happen to be big bulky things, but it was a different category. Or other uses that needed some kind of exterior uses
Right.
that were intrinsically part of the business.
It becomes a little awkward because you don't want that zone to become the SB zone. The SB zone is really a place where we've kind of envisioned your tree company can park their trucks there and start the trucks up at 7 in the morning without bothering anyone, or a car wash or a car dealer. And places you're like, okay, we want those in town, but maybe only in certain areas. Definitely not downtown, but also places people, don't really want to live as much as, say, other mixed-use zones.
Great, so
Because
the
of the
next
nature of the
steps would
uses.
be to draft the number of issues and questions, retail space if possible, amendments to zoning regulation. Then what did you do here on page 3?
We have not really given it a proposal. This is the existing wording of the
Okay.
regs.
Yep.
So I figured we'd include that as part of this memo, so you can see that in their principal permitted uses, medical offices, professional offices, and as Dave said, the maintenance and replacement of commercial sales and service. So complete angler, whether we considered that at the time bulky goods, but generally turned to retail. M&T Bank, that's more financial services. Again, the regs have changed, so we're gonna have to figure out how to address that. Back in the day, banks were considered retail. Now we have a separate category, financial services, so we may wanna tweak that a little bit to clarify that. Pasta Vita was considered retail. They only sold pre-prepared food to go. So you couldn't eat there, it wasn't something they prepared there. You get your pre-prepared mac and cheese or meatloaf, frozen, or ice cream, drive it home. So that was considered retail. So that's a grandfathered retail space. Before that, it was a sewing machine shop.
Sewing machine, yeah.
Okay.
So we've been struggling with this a little while. Wanted to get feedback from you guys, and then we can look into possibly tweaking it. And
Yeah, I would suggest like clear up the language.
we'll do the best we
So
can.
it's so you don't hit the tripwires.
All day, every day, we try to
I know.
avoid.
So this, I mean, we're taking a crack at it.
Yeah, we'll give it a shot, come back to you.
Okay.
So I'm thinking there are a couple of spots where trucks are parked in the back, behind these little houses. I think, maybe only one spot, maybe two spots, but
Yeah. they're not allowed
would
to-
this impact that? I think there's an architect building, might be
Yep,
behind
architects,
them.
traditionally, we would treat as a professional office.
Yeah.
So, for example, PB Architects, Howard Patterson and Jacek Bikidzinski, used to
Yeah.
have north side of the post road.
Yeah.
They had an architect's office, perfect. I think
But
right
what-
now, Ruddy Construction has a place on the south side of the road. Fox Hill Builders may have been, no, maybe it was another builder.
There, if I saw those over here.
Yeah, but type of place where, a builder or contractor comes in, gets marching
Yeah.
orders. And
I'm just thinking that some are stored in the back. I think there might even be garages back
Yeah,
there.
there are a
for some
couple, you're
trucks.
right, you're right.
But I assume that'll be okay at the end of the day?
Yeah, there could be some grandfathered things that we're like, well, we don't allow it now, but you have a grandfathered spot.
But you're not allowed to be visible from the street. Commercial trucks. are
Well,
not
I
allowed
haven't
to-
walked back there, so they must be.
I mean, the only one
Yeah.
is doesn't Geary have his, they don't have a maroon pickup truck out in front of this?
Tom Gary has a retail framing shop,
It's a
and he
kind of a
has
sign for them, isn't it?
Right. I'll call it-
Trust me, they were on, Woody was on top of that too. And what was the guy that was where the bathroom store is now, the one
Phil
I,
Pietro?
Bill Pietro, which that guy had a moving van there, didn't he? It was Modern Home, I think was the name of it.
Yeah, that was down in the
Green.
service business zone at the
Yeah.
end. So,
Yeah.
with your okay, we'll put something together, come back to the commission,
Okay.
get some feedback
And
before we
we'll-
put together a formal proposal.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's by special permit anyways, right? So I really don't see what we're accomplishing, but okay.
Okay.
And residences will be permitted, right?
Residences are permitted. It's the unusual commercial zone that you say, okay, residential can go here. And the incentive for doing that, as Dave mentioned at the start, is you have these really nice historic homes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That, it would be nice to have a
And there's
bigger.
some kind of cottages in the back of some of them too.
Exactly.
that might be
We
nice.
don't-
ADUs.
Do we
Yeah,
permit
so I was just
living
thinking
above
that.
the buildings, second floor?
In this zone, we do allow by
Floor
special
levels?
permit
Okay.
dwelling units on upper floors.
Remember, that was the, it was a house, and then it got converted to
Right,
a
split
residence,
up.
and then it got converted to commercial. It was probably a funeral home at one point in time, then it was Allstate, and then Allstate went out, and then they wanted to convert it back to residential. It's these, I
House
mean,
been chopped up 15
it all
times.
goes full
Yeah.
circle. I mean, we're gonna see that, and we're gonna prove it in hopefully soon, the fire department.
Yeah.
Owns a house,
Yeah.
get converted
Yeah.
to something else and go back to a house,
Back to the house.
which is kind of cool, it goes full circle.
Could
Okay?
Thank you for the feedback.
Okay, next, discussion of regulations on regarding home child care public act, 23-142. As of October 1st, 2023, a bunch of laws in the state of Connecticut changed. I think this is one of them. So in your package, you have a memo dated to the Planning Commission from Jeremy Ginsburg relative to child cares, and it's dated September 28th. Go ahead, Jeremy, take it away.
Sure, this is fairly self-explanatory. Public Act 23-142 said towns must now treat two types of childcare as single-family residential, as they treat single-family residential zones, or homes. One is childcare home group, and the other is childcare home family. The good news is we already defined them in the regulations to match the state definitions, so that piece of the puzzle is already there. It's just changing the zoning to specifically allow them in residential zones. So one of them is now allowed. It would just be changing child care home group from a special permit use to a permitted principal use, or a permitted accessory use, rather, in residential zones.
Now, do we see that? Does that come in front of us or just go in front of staff?
If this were to change, it would just go before staff, which
But
is the
it's-
way the state wants it.
But you'll still know about it. It's not anything that's hidden. If
Right.
someone doesn't have a secret home care in their house and nobody knows about it, then you find it out in the newspaper.
They have to be licensed by the state,
Somebody's
obviously.
Smuggling fentanyl in the basement.
Exactly, that's exactly what I'm after. I mean, there are a couple of those in town,
Yep.
that there's jungle gyms, you guys got enough stuff to enforce that, to start chasing those things down.
Right. This is certainly a state policy to make it easier for people to open such things. It's seen as good public policy to have available childcare locally.
Yep.
People aren't
We have a
driving
note.
up and down I-95 to find childcare.
Your changes are just very, very trivial. It's adding section N and striking line B, and that's it, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So we can
It's tiny.
expect, because it's fairly straightforward, we can have this put forth and probably have a public hearing in January on
Perfect.
something like this.
Do it.
But these guys, our zoning code's pretty good.
Yeah.
And the state isn't following.
I was
ours.
looking for all the changes, and it took me 5 minutes to realize it was like add 4 words, strike 4 words from
Yeah.
one to the other. I was like, that's it?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Okay?
Well, are there any I'm flying away.
You're the one who should stare at the clock.
We're remodeling the kitchen because we want it to look nicer, not because it's function changes.
Well, that's the question though. Is it a function change? Because now it's as of right. So do they have to have parking just for a single family residence?
Which they, yeah,
So if and they can have employees under the state statute. So is this potential for on-street parking?
well, it's interesting because when the State of Connecticut Office of Policy and Management sent out that memo to us last week, all the planners in the state, not all the planners, but many of the planners saying, wait a minute, this makes no sense. There's no planning here because you might have a single-family house on a small lot that they bring in a handful of children every day.
Well, I didn't quite
Parents coming in
understand
the
that.
morning and leaving.
6, 12, what's the
There-
real
I
number?
think there's 6 or 12. There's 2 different numbers, I think, in the regulations. But many of the planners said the same thing. Wait a minute, that's not planning. Planning, you would have sufficient on-site parking, a place to turn around. But I think the reason the state is getting involved, which we see that more and more in our business, the state is saying, well, there's bigger public policy here. We don't really want this to be scrutinized by local planning and zoning commissions. And
They're
so
going
we've
around
seen that
this.
with numerous uses through the years. Telecommunications would be one, and there's a handful of others.
So you
that are
could be
beyond.
in an R 1/3 zone and have 12 kids in your house,
Yep,
I think you'd have to be licensed. though.
running
Yeah.
running a
Well, the
day.
I don't
license
know
would
the
be
op-
only for 3 rather than for 12. It's not big enough.
That's why I want to make sure that it's on these guys' radar screen, so they're licensed for 1, they know about it for 2.
Right.
Electricity, they have to put in more electrical outlets.
So what's the requirements for licensing?
Yeah, safety and size.
Yeah, there's
per
certain space.
Occupancy or their
I
occupancy.
think there's also
standards.
They're onerous.
kitchen, cooking
Yeah,
facilities,
Plumbing facilities.
outdoor play area. There's quite a, and they get inspected numerous times. But there are space requirements, so
I would think so.
in a certain, if you have a small house,
Yeah.
I guess I'd love to understand what those are.
They at when I was at Middlesex Cup running the show, there was a guy whose job was to go around to every single daycare and day camp in the summer, and he just appeared. And a lot of the clubs in town were not even licensed. Like, this is going back 10, 15 years ago, didn't have a license, and all of a sudden this guy shows up and shut it down. You know, and that's what this, there's a person that works for the state of Connecticut that drives around and checks all these things out. And if they're illegal.
we'll track
they
that
should-
down, Mike, because there are very specific standards
Yeah.
before you can even open up. And so I think one of them is certainly a sign off by the town that everything's shipshape.
I mean, it's one of the big ones was, like refrigerating your lunch. Like
Yep.
you drop off your kid with a, brown bag lunch, they have to make sure that there's enough refrigeration for all the 12 kids' lunches to go inside.
Places for them to wash their hands and
Yeah.
et cetera. So,
But that's why I want to make sure that it's
The
still.
only thing more
it still goes-
complicated is running a back-to-school picnic at one of the elementary schools and all the things that you have to do for hand washing stations and eye flushing stations and all these other things that, it's,
Right.
there's a
always
lot,
have
there's
people
a,
Who, skirt those rules and.
Yeah, but there's also a
liberal
kind of,
with them and.
yeah, I mean, you
so
could
that's-
probably rent that stuff day of from Taylor Rental, right? And it shows up and it disappears.
Right.
Yeah.
okay.
Is there an example of a group childcare home around? Because, so people could reside there, or I guess you should reside there, but you can have up to 12 kids, from 6 to 12.
yep.
But it cannot be in a private family home.
I think there, at the end of, Dave and I were talking before the meeting, the end of East
Yeah.
Lane, where David's.
That used to
group
be,
Used to be, I'll call it a nursery school.
yeah,
I don't think they use that terminology anymore.
yeah.
But that one might have been more than 12, because there were two separate buildings, as
That's
I
the only place
recall.
I can
Kind of the
think of.
higher one, the lower one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
12 kids in each building, maybe?
It was.
There's been a number of changes over the years where the state was regulating nursery schools and daycare centers, and then they wanted to encourage those, but on a smaller scale. So they said, okay, so we'll create these category called childcare homes, and one category will be no more than 6 kids, we'll call that a childcare home family, and the next is 6 to 12 kids, and that's a childcare home group. And I'm thinking it was 20 or 25 years ago that the state came out and said that the local regulations shall regulate the childcare home family the same way you do a single-family residential. So you cannot impose any more strict regulations on that very low-key 6 or less
Yeah.
kids in a home for childcare. And there are few in town, but not many that I know of. There's probably more that I don't know of. I don't know of any in the category between 6 and 12 that were ever authorized or permitted, because in talking with the childcare providers, it didn't make financial sense. It made a big jump as far as the number of employees and the criteria that they had to satisfy. But the state has been encouraging this for years and years, and most people don't realize that the town doesn't get to regulate land use based on its own jurisdiction. We only get that authority from the state. So here the state's saying the policy is we want to encourage small home daycare up to 6, and now they've said, well, that hasn't been enough, let's encourage it up to 12. I don't know how many we're going to get that are in that up to 12 category, because I don't know how the economics are going to work out for the providers.
Right.
But at least it would be a thing. And I think Mike's right, one of the problems can be parking, and that's what people would notice in the morning and people would notice in the afternoon, and then it would be dissipated and gone. But I'll check the statutes and see if the state does require parking. But I don't think that they will, because they're
think so.
they're looking out for Stamford and Hartford and Norwalk and New Haven situations. They're not so concerned about Darien situations, and they don't think about that unintended consequence.
Yeah, I mean, my kids were dropped off, it's called Miss Nancy's in Stanford. There was 6 kids in this lady's back porch.
Mhm.
Okay, we done? We're good? Okay, let's keep it moving.
Yep.
All right, next item, this is the bigger one in my mind. Discussion of accessory dwelling units, ADUs. In our packet, we got another document. I think it relates back to May 9th of 2023 with regard to the minutes from ADUs. Take it away, guys.
So in May, I think was the last time that I was here and discussed the proposed regulations to allow accessory dwelling units in virtually all of the single-family residential zones. The commission members had some issues, concerns. Those changes have been incorporated into the draft regulations, which are dated June 1. And then there's a memo dated June 2 that summarizes the status. And the draft regulations would permit accessory dwelling units in the single-family residential zones as a use allowed by right and subject to a zoning and building permit and staff review if the project is on a property that is an acre or more. If it's on a less than an acre, it would need to come to the commission for a site plan review, but it's not a discretionary, well, we don't think we like it, it's, does it meet the regulations or not? And
Just
the
prove it to us. Just prove it to us. It would prove it to us so that it works.
Yep. So you wanted to keep it simple. The regulations were basically that the structure that's going to be lived in, the accessory dwelling unit, needs to meet all the zoning setback requirements for a dwelling unit. They cannot utilize a structure that's too close to the property boundary lines because it's non-conforming, or because it was authorized to be a storage shed or structure which was allowed closer to the property line than a house would be.
That was the only issue that I had open on my list, because there are some garages that are close to a property line that are accessory uses, and those would be great, in my opinion, to become ADUs.
And maybe that change would be based on zone, like half acre, might be okay. What's a setback, accessory building setback in 2 acre zone?
In the 2 acre zone and in the 1 acre zone, the requirement for a new structure is the same whether it's an accessory structure or a principal structure.
In 1
So
acre,
there's
2
no
acre.
reduction in the
There's
side
no-
yard or rear yard
It starts at
setback.
the half acre.
It's when you get half acre, 3rd acre, 5th acre zones that there's a reduction if it's a 1-story high and it's gonna be for storage and parking only,
Yeah.
not for residential, not for
And that's 10
finished
feet,
living space.
and that's 10 feet.
Well, it
Half
gets
acre-
down,
half
it could
acre
be as
zone-
small as 5 feet.
In half
For
acre
storage
zone?
shed in
Oh, yeah.
the 5th acre, 3rd acre
It's
zone.
and that's really close.
And that's really too close.
That's really close.
And the commission
I just wanna show
agreed
you
with that from the very beginning.
Chrono's old house.
Well, what if you made them,
In half acre zone?
No, 3rd. That's the only one I wish as an example. So, yeah, then you can buy the house.
And one of the concerns, I think, too, was the parking requirement. The on-site parking, the commission felt was very important, rather than having on-street parking. So you can get some
Yeah.
very tight, small small lot size residential neighborhood. Joseph Street, in that area to the west of Hollow Tree and north of West Avenue, where there are small parcels, and there's already on-street parking because those lots were developed in the 1900s and 1910s and 1920s. And so we don't want to encourage accessory dwelling units there unless they can provide on-site parking spaces, not on-street parking spaces. And the on-site parking spaces, to comply with the current zoning regulations, cannot be within the required front yard setback or within the required side yard setback. So it's going to be restrictive for some people, and there will be complaints about it, but I think it's a crucial thing that the commission had discussed and agreed on, that we don't want to change the appearance, the fabric of the community. We can't call it the character unless we can't put that word in the statutes or the
Like the
regulations
fabric.
without clearly defining it with dimensional things. But that's what we really
Yeah.
want, is to maintain the character, the single-family residential character. So on-site parking is critical. We had discussed on a number of occasions the maximum size of the accessory dwelling units. The commission did not want to have, as the state statute had defined accessory apartments, as long as the accessory apartment was smaller than the principal dwelling, it was an accessory apartment. The commission said, no, we don't want to have a 2,000 square foot house and a 1,900 square foot accessory
Yeah.
apartment
Yeah.
next to it. So we kept on talking about the size of the accessory dwelling unit. And the current regulation draft for the last discussion was that it would be 700 square feet maximum if the accessory dwelling unit is attached to the principal dwelling unit, and it would be up to 1,000 square feet if the accessory dwelling unit would be a detached structure and separate from the principal building. And thirdly, the total floor area in the accessory dwelling unit would not exceed 30% of the total living space on the property. So if you had a principal dwelling unit of 2,000 square feet, you could have a detached accessory dwelling unit of 1,000 square feet. That's a total of 3,000 square feet. Then 30% of that, actually, it does,
Yeah.
my example was
Yeah.
numerically quite not
We
quite
get
right,
You're close.
but in the right
Yeah.
ballpark.
So that 1,000, so you're getting a governor, whether it's the 30% or the 1,000.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're not, if you have a, 10,000 square foot house, you're not getting to get 30% of that.
Right, you don't get a
You're-
3,000 square
You're
foot.
topping out at the 1,000. Yeah,
Right, exactly.
yeah.
I like that, I like that idea.
The other,
I think the idea of them
The other-
being in the structure,
I know you do,
I think it should be detached.
Yeah, I know you do.
I think you end up with multifamily housing.
I know.
And you're gonna have people putting crazy stairways and fire exits and all
yeah,
sorts of,
how do
Which
we,
we
how
have.
do we,
and hanging satellite dishes.
Yeah, I know. No, you're 100% right. I mean, that's, the street that we've talked about this, and it's no secret. Is it Wakeman or Wakemore? Which one is it?
Wakemore Street.
Wakemore
Northern
Street.
part of town off Hoyt Street.
Right. So if you drive down that road, there's a house. It's got a set of stairs that goes from the ground floor up to like the third floor. And that's I have no idea why they'd have a fire escape.
okay,
there. It's
are
2.5
we
miles
able
up
to
front.
say no second floor exterior access?
That's what I would say, yeah.
So if somebody wanted to make it an inside access, you have to come in and provide the access to the above grade garage, and it has to be in the inside rather than hanging a,
Steel staircase.
steel staircase out the side.
Yeah, but what if
Are
you're,
we allowed,
I mean, the only problem with that is imagine in the bigger size lots, the R2 zone where you got a garage barn and you're putting a dwelling unit upstairs,
Just box up the stairs.
yeah, but you could have it out the back with like a nice little deck on it that overlooks like a sunset. All of a sudden, right there, I get what you're saying, what you want to stop, but by just being hard about that, you might be restricting something that otherwise would be totally normal and would fit in completely with the land around there.
I'd also be concerned that I'll call him the principal resident of the house, whatever it is, might want to lock the door to the ADU so that they just can't come freely, but then the fire marshal will get upset because you're gonna have to have some kind of way to get out of there. So I think you need exterior access.
I don't know, that's where we're having these discussions,
Yeah.
to try to throw stuff on the table and see where it slides. I mean, at the end of the day, it has to be, it has to get approved by the fire department. We're not doing anything that's not approved by the building department. So if the guy says you have to have a second means of egress to get out, you gotta have a
Yep,
second
yep,
means of egress
yep,
to get out. I mean, I get Mike's point where you could box it in. I got a house, you know, that's got a deck in the back, and there's a staircase in the back, you know? I mean, I get your point too. You know, you can chop that off and make that, and it's an outside staircase, but it goes with deck, and then deck goes into the house.
What about doing it by special permit?
That's, it's, there was some, that's what we wanted to do, was to have it by special permit. The only thing that I was gonna do is we were gonna do our own set of fees, so special permit fee for this thing would be zero, would be like $1 or whatever it is.
I'm not saying because of it's monetary, but there are, like, the unintended consequences of approving this with, you know, no idea. We got no track record of seeing this in front of us.
Correct, and the whole state doesn't have any track record, and the whole state's going down the same road. Well,
To mitigate that, can we sunset this?
well, that's what I was gonna
Right?
say.
We got into that somewhere in here, right?
You got into that last go-around, Dave, with regards to sunsetting it. And I forget where we shook out. I thought you didn't like the sunset idea, no? Or
I didn't
you-
have any issues with the sunset
Okay.
idea.
Because that was the one thing you wanted to float it out there, see if it worked. If it didn't work, just.
Yeah, that was on page 3, number 15, where this proposal has it for about
I
5
don't
years.
have that.
This is,
Did you send it out with this packet?
I think we sent it out this morning,
Oh, okay.
yesterday,
That's fine.
I think yesterday. It was kind of
So-
one of those things that I
Yesterday.
found.
Yes.
I'm like, oh, yeah, I should send this out. So that would be one provision we've talked about, allowing it only by special permit. Here's the criteria, if you will. Or we could add a provision to section 1000, which is the special permit standards, and say, for accessory apartments, here's the criteria.
Yes, we certainly could. The state statute deliberately does not want the commission to get into special permits for accessory apartments as defined by the state statutes.
But we
The town opted out of that,
opted out of that.
as did roughly 2/3 of the communities within the state. So the commission could do that. And the discussions from last year and earlier this year were that the commission would prefer to keep it simple
Yep.
and keep the process
Yep.
not involving the commission, having a public hearing and having 10 people in the audience saying, I don't think it would be good to have my neighbor have an accessory. You didn't want to get into that
Yeah.
kind of internal neighborhood bickering based on things. So we stayed away from the exterior character kind of things, like having a second door on the front of the house. Well, there's dozens of those in town just because of the way the driveway is and the
But I do
main
think,
Center Hall Colonial is.
but I do think the exterior staircase to a second floor kind of thing could really not be well received.
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, any single-family homeowner could do that tomorrow. As long as it meets the setback regulations. In fact, we have
Yep,
an exception for the regular setback regulations that a stairway can go 3 feet into the normal setback area just to get an egress out of there. So any homeowner could do that. Most of them choose not to.
yeah.
And based on my experience in reviewing applications with applicants and having used second floor exterior stairs, it doesn't make good sense. The building code allows it,
And that
but it's best
staircase,
to have it enclosed because it constantly is a weather problem.
and it would need to be within the setback. So say like you were in a half-acre zone and you had to be 15 feet off the side, the edge of that staircase would have to be 15 feet off the side. So that's putting the building in an additional 3 or 4. Yeah.
Yep, yep.
So it might,
He just said it
He
could
said
go
it could
in.
be in, she said it could be in.
No,
setback.
it could be in 3 feet in the setback.
If it's a stairway on the outside of the building,
Yeah.
it's allowed to penetrate the side yard setback and only need to be 12. But if it's enclosed,
Then
it's
it has
part
to
of the
be,
building,
yeah.
needs to meet the 15-foot setback.
Right.
But from a maintenance and a safety point of view,
Yeah, inside is
you
better.
don't want to have a second floor stairway that people are going to use all the time that has to be shoveled off all the time and de-iced all the time. It's really a problem. And
like a dorm.
And I've told probably 100 people over the years, it's not a zoning requirement, but you're really gonna regret having this exterior stairway to maintain. It's not gonna be safe for you and your family. You wanna have a roof over it, you wanna have it enclosed, because the roof will just stop the rain, it won't stop the snow and the ice and that kind of stuff.
What about if you get those fiberglass ribbed roofs that are green, they just bolt it on top of it, and then it covers it? Looks- I mean, that's my point.
Like a train station.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah,
happens.
exactly.
in
The
some
train
cases.
station's right over here.
But the reason people don't put an exterior stairwell on now is because it's not required, right? If you
Right.
have an accessory structure on the second floor, you're gonna be required to have a means of egress. And to George's point, the owner of the property is gonna wanna have some separation between their unit and your unit, so you're gonna almost be forced to do it. There's no other way to get up there.
But the building code will require a second means of egress from the accessory dwelling unit.
Right, like.
It won't be the fire marshal, because he only gets involved if it's 3 or more dwellings in a building. So if it's a 1 or 2 family house,
But the code.
then it's technically just the building
Here's a
code. But
question.
we all think of it as
So
a
that-
fire code
So
requirement.
are we gonna be able to solve this tonight? Because if you have a 1,400 you have a, well, let's see, it's a 1,500 square foot house, that's 2 stories, and I create an ADU on the second floor that's 500 square feet. So it's under 700 square feet, it's a third of the property, and then it's a little cape house, and I'm sticking a set of stairs in the setback to the left of the house that are open to the elements, and you buy the wood from Ring Zone,
You can do it.
right?
Or
You can
even,
build it yourself.
Okay.
And then inside the top of the stairs, you put a door and it's locked on both sides.
Yeah.
You know, that's
That's
what,
why I like it as an except, like just take it outside the principal residence. Just make it a separate structure.
I mean, we can crawl before we walk and just make it the ones in a separate section, and then if it works, we go back and do it later. We don't have to do it both ways. We do
Right.
whatever we want.
Right. That's kind of where I shake out on it.
Okay.
I think there's just too many what-ifs for that. Or you put it in the special permit category and we can
we have a
But to
look
the-
at
we
it.
can look at every application.
Which is fine, right? But then you fall into that wishy-washy section, like, okay, so we're gonna deny this one, but we're not gonna deny that one, or what?
Yeah,
You hate that,
that's when you get to litigation.
correct? George, what do you shaking on this?
I am thinking that there are a lot of houses in this town that are amenable to an ADU within its structure, so I think there are a lot of people kind of waiting for us to make that possible,
I
actually.
mean-
And so, yeah, within their principal residence.
Once you make it within the principal residence on the first floor.
I always go back to the Gene Coyle house. I mean, Gene Coyle, God rest his soul, he had a doctor's office, and the doctor's office was to the left.
Yeah.
That's where his sister lived, and he
Mhm.
lived on this side. There's 2 separate front doors. It was on the first floor. You know, she had everything on that side of the house except for a stove. I was in it. You know, it
Or
was legit.
people that
He paid
have
his-
basements
she
that
paid both.
have
Basements are gonna be
exterior
where they wanna.
stairwells that go down and they're properly,
Basements will be the
and there's
first
an
one.
extra door and,
Yeah.
you know, they wanna lock,
You can shut
put
the-
lock
shut
at the
the-
front, at their first floor
Inside, yeah,
entrance.
but you can shut the inside door,
Just
and
one at
then
a
you just
time, one at
add
a time.
one thing in the bottom.
What is that?
I have a question for you. We're
Alright, so you can
talking,
answer that one.
or anybody, we're talking about mostly one house, principal use, and one ADU. If you go back to your example, in a small house that's 2,000 square feet with 1,000 square feet per floor, and the second floor you chop into 2 ADUs,
No,
and the first floor, we're just gonna say no to that? So we're only gonna say
one
one
ADU.
per,
No more than one
one per
ADU per
property,
property.
okay.
Yep.
Because then you get into all kinds of
Language in
weird
the
math
code.
where that could, suddenly you could have 2
No.
500
No.
square units and it satisfies the 30%, satisfies the under 700, satisfies essentially all these math things, but as long as we stick it to just one,
Yeah,
because
just
you can
one.
squeeze a bunch of weird stuff in there with the math we have lined up.
I mean, that's the,
We also have the language in there that the borders go away if you get an ADU, right?
I'm sorry, what was that?
The language for borders? You
Yeah,
have up to
yeah.
3 borders in your property.
We got rid of that.
I'm sorry, I'm not catching the
the
question.
borders went away, he said.
The borders,
Tenants?
the tenants.
You can have tenants in your property. You can have up to 3, I think they're
Rumors,
transit
I'm sorry,
borders.
rumors or borders, yes,
Yeah.
okay, yes. Up to 3.
So we're taking
But-
that away once you put an ADU in, correct?
Correct,
Okay.
yes, that was one of the things that the commission said we don't, actually, I had thought of, and the commission agreed, we don't want to have that confusion of it.
Yep.
The state statutes were written to say that when there's an accessory apartment, it could be one or more accessory apartment. So somebody could have 2 or 3 or 4 accessory apartments, and the commission said, and that's another reason to opt out of the state statutes. But if the concern for exterior stairways is something that you're concerned about, I can add a provision into the draft regulations, and we can include it in there, and when we go to a public hearing in January,
We'll get feedback.
we'll see how the public,
Feels about it.
responds to that. And if there's any other things that you have that you say, that would just really be a problem, let me know, and I can incorporate it into the draft. And
Yeah.
that's the
You're
purpose of
talking
these
about-
discussions, is to kind of think about well, if everything goes ideally, it'll be wonderful.
Yeah,
Things don't go ideally. And
yeah.
we know that there's gonna be problems, so let's avoid as many of those as we
Yeah.
can.
You're
Great.
talking about a provision that prohibits exterior?
From the discussion tonight, I think that's what
Let's have
you
exterior,
want, and
let's,
that's a concern, so
let's-
I'll
let's take it out. It's an ADU, the stairs can't be in the setback.
Or I thought it was
Or to be
more than that,
enclosed.
that the access to the ADU could not be on an upper floor. Meaning that, so it's, you're entering in on the ground floor, or you're entering in on a basement level, but you're not entering in on a exterior staircase.
What about the staircase in the back and you can't see it? You have a path in the back.
Yeah, big
You know, you
barn.
have a
Deck.
a brick
Staircase
path
up.
on the
Yep.
side and a
Yep.
staircase in the back. You can't see from the street.
Yep.
That,
Yep.
you don't, on the wakeboard one, you can see it sitting there, right?
Yep,
In my house, and you can't see the back staircase, because it's.
My in-laws have a staircase going up to a deck on top of a barn.
I know,
that's
but then you also.
1,400 square feet,
yeah,
that could be an ADU, it's not, it's like a,
I know,
a pool
and then-
room with ping
Well,
pong
yeah.
tables and stuff,
And
but
then-
it's
And then
it's a
we've all
staircase
seen those
outside,
beautiful
you know?
old Victorians
Right,
that have
like-
fire escapes just hooked to the third floors.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
then
just
come wrapping
tacked all
down,
the way
this-
down.
that's what I think what we're all trying to articulate, how do we,
Isn't there
not
one-
end up with that?
Isn't one of those on Mansfield now? Well, White Buildings, White House. Okay, so what's the next steps? When can we get this a public hearing? Obviously, we're doing it after election time,
Yeah, I think we're gonna aim for January,
okay?
because the commission doesn't meet in December.
Yep,
So what we'll do is aim to take the conversation tonight, take the prior proposal, find an evening in January, and then put this forth and refer it out over your December break.
okay. So the only thing that we want to, you're adjust this is, one is this exterior staircase concept, I would say keep it out of the setback. If it's in the back, it's not going to be in the setback, but if it's on the side,
Yeah.
it's going to be in the setback, so you can't see it.
Or do you want
Right.
to say not visible from the street?
Out of the setback and not visible from the street.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Not
Because you don't
visible
want-
from the street? And
Yeah,
not
it-
setback.
and enclosed?
Again, I don't really care about it, from the back house, but
Yeah, no, I know what we're trying to avoid, I get it.
Right, then the only thing
Well, if it
that,
was enclosed, then. I
the only
wouldn't
thing I
have a
want to
problem.
do on
Yeah, I get it.
a commission tour is look at some of these existing pool houses and garages that have second floors that are accessory buildings that
Mhm.
could put an apartment on the second floor. Because I think that might come back later, but.
Oh, if there's an established grandfathered list of accessory dwelling units that exist already that exceed the 1,000 or exceed 30%, are they then precluded from becoming an ADU? Because,
Well, there should be no existing ADUs in town.
Yeah.
There
but-
might be
but
100% apartments, but they don't have a stove.
no, meaning there are pool houses that are greater than 1,000 square feet. Are they not allowed to make it an ADU because they exist beyond 1,000? Are we going to establish a list of grandfathered provisions?
I think if the building was 1,800 square feet, detached, an old
Yeah.
barn.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's 1,800 square feet. And they wanted to turn 1,000 square feet of it
Okay.
into the ADU.
I see.
and then have the remaining be storage or
Got it.
parking,
Okay.
that's fine.
Got it. Okay, that's how.
Or even if they said, we'll keep the 1,800 square feet of garage on the basement level, and we're gonna, the
Got it.
barn is already 2 stories high, but it doesn't have a second floor per se, we'll add a second floor and make 1,000 square
Understood.
feet.
And
Got it.
a pool house, in your view, that's big,
Mm-hmm.
they could always come before us for a special permit to build it anyway, right?
No, meaning, I'm talking about the ones that already exist in town.
The illegal ones.
No, they're not
They're not
illegal because they
illegal,
don't
they
have
have stoves,
kitchens.
they don't have
They were
stoves.
approved
Right.
by,
Yeah, then they
through
gotta-
legal
they gotta-
means, but it wasn't, it was just a pool house.
Yeah.
It didn't have the kitchen, it had everything but the stove.
There's 3
Yeah.
brand new ones on Long Neck
Yeah,
Lane.
and now they're saying, hey, can I put the stove in
We got an
and
illegal one
rent
on my
it?
street.
And it doesn't meet some of these things.
They're brand new, and,
You don't want it.
someone that lived there, all you do is stick it in the stove.
Stick it in the
When this
stove.
thing gets passed, they stick it in the stove, and
Yeah.
instead of grandma coming into the main house,
Stuck out there.
she cooks her own pot
If it
roast.
gets, they would need a special permit from the commission.
Okay, so we would, we
Okay.
can handle those at a one-off.
All right.
Got it.
All right, so we beat that one enough. So you're changing a couple tweak things. I just want to do a little bit of a drive around town, look at some of those pool houses that are in setbacks, but we'll deal with that later. But I really want to get this on the planning and on the public hearing docket.
Yes, so we'll aim for a date in January, maybe not your first meeting in January, it might be second week in January, third week in January. Where,
Great.
okay, good.
And there's going to be at least probably one new person on the commission. All right, so we done with that?
Yeah.
Thank you, Dave.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks a lot, Dave.
Fruits and stuff.
Next item on the agenda, deliberation and possible decisions regarding, first, proposed amendment to Darien Zoning Map, COZM number 1-2023, PL-23-121, put forth by the Noroton Fire Department at 1921 Boston Post Road, special permit application number 332, site plan. This is, we're not going to read the rest, this proposal to do the MU zone on 1921. So in our
Right.
packets,
2 draft resolutions.
Right.
First would be the zoning map change to apply the MU zone to the
Which one's
subject
that?
property. You can see that we've drafted it with an effective date of October
Zoning map
22nd, which gives us time to file it with the town clerk, publish the legal notice, change the zoning regulations, put the
There it is.
regulations online, et cetera. And then if this passes, then we have a draft
We'll have a
resolution beyond
okay,
that.
so
I'm going to recuse on this one, just 'cause I know what's going on, but I haven't actually seen the house, so
okay,
I'll recuse.
that's okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. We
Yeah,
we
it's
need
for
4 to
good.
pass. Okay. So the first one is, it's got a COZM up top.
Yep.
On yours, effective date. Questions, comments, typos, scrivener's errors in this one? I think they did a pretty good job. We love the,
Yep.
we love the MU zone. And if you look at page 2 on number 7 on the bottom, consistency with the 2016 Town Plan of Conservation Development. That we're gonna modify the zoning map to really in conformity with the plan.
Yep.
Good. Looking for amendment, a motion to approve. Mike makes a motion, looking for a second. Adam makes a second. All in favor?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Motion passes 4-0 and with 1 abstention. You're an abstention, right? Is that right? Or-
I guess, whatever.
So now, since we just put the MU zone on 1921, we can go to the next document, which is deliberations regarding only, I guess we did it together, I'm sorry. It's only one thing on the agenda, but we have a second resolution. I apologize. The second resolution is, again, for the same exact property, converting the house. The principal use requires a special permit.
Yep.
All the findings were adhered to. And all the filings are ready to go. Questions, comments, typos, scrivener's errors on this one? The one thing that Adam did want to make sure that we talked about was, and I don't mean to put words in your mouth, is that the parking circulations, in order that the property now contains more than a minimum number of parking spaces for a single-family residence. There's no change in the existing on-site parking proposed or required. Looking to a motion to approve as submitted. Amy makes a motion, looking for a second. Mike makes a second. All in favor? 4 yeas, 0 nays, and 1 abstention.
Hey, Jeremy,
Mhm.
on that,
Motion passes. Good luck, fire department. Thank you, guys.
on that one, there's a minor formatting issue. I don't think it matters though. Point 3 is tabbed in, whereas points 1, 2, 4, 5.
You're very tough.
You see that?
Yeah.
The commission-
Finding 3 on page 2?
Yeah. I don't know, there's no like, on my PDF, there's an extra tab there.
Not
Right.
on my picture.
Okay, I'll take a look at it.
Don't spend too much time.
Interesting. Maybe it's just how it's rendering.
Yeah, you laptop guys.
Take a look at
All
it.
right, next item on the agenda, deliberations only. Land filling regrading application number 555 PL-23-114. Theresa N. Iorfino Revocable Trust at 9 Richmond Drive. Proposal to raise the existing residence and construct a new single-family dwelling in generally the same location. Construction of a porch and deck and reconfigure the driveway and to perform related site development activities regarding activities including regrading of the property, installation of storm management system, inside of storm management. This was the house that they're putting, remember I asked the woman if they have gas in the backyard, and she said, no, there's no gas line, they're putting propane tanks in the burial.
Didn't we deliberate this last?
We did deliberate. I
Yeah.
think the main question was confirming that it's Fresh Meadow approach. I think that was Mike's
Weird
thing.
text, right?
Yep.
And
I think that was this one or the other one, but
I think that was the other one.
the other
What was
one.
the other one?
This one,
Um,
was
The other one.
this one I had the question on raising the property, right? You and I
Right.
got a phone call on it.
Yep.
They're not actually raising the property, I think that's important to note. So they're keeping that corner of the property so that they don't have to go for a variance?
No, that's
Yeah.
30 Hilton.
Oh, that's 30 Hilton, sorry,
Uh,
okay.
But this one was, they're keeping the knoll in the front.
yeah, that,
Yeah.
And this one, they're reusing the driveway and a little bit of regrading.
This wasn't Amy's Abbott-Taxis, right?
Nope,
The other one?
that's
30 Hilton
Hilton.
was Amy's
Yeah.
Appalachian.
she was helping.
Okay.
And that one has
But
the,
Richmond, I remember uneventful. No major
yeah,
comments from the
I don't know why
commission.
we're deliberating again.
Yeah. No, we
Okay.
we're
I
good.
think we deliberated on both.
Thought the
We'll have
straw-
something for next week's meeting on both.
Yeah, the straw poll, this one was okay.
Yeah, because we delivered all 3 last go
Yeah.
around.
Yep.
Okay, I'll just read those, it's on the agenda. Landfilling and regrading application number 556 PL-23-122, Brian and Brett Edgar at 30 Hilton Street. Proposal to raise the existing residence and detached garage to construct a new single-family dwelling. Construction of a new driveway, retaining walls, patio areas, and perform related site development activities, including the excavation, regrading of the property, installation of stormwater management. This is the house where they're raising the garage in the back. They're demolishing we'll change the word. They're demolishing the garage in the back and putting 2 parking space garage under the front door.
Correct. And but Mike's point was a good one when he called me. He said, they're not demolishing the whole house, they're keeping the non-conforming piece on the
Yeah.
north side.
Yes.
And that is
Yeah,
correct.
that's-
Right, and this is, in the resolution, we want to say that they're adhering to the zoning setbacks, but they're not adhering to the private setbacks.
And I did-
Correct, the private
street.
restriction, which Mike pointed out as well, yes.
And I think I did look up the
Private
mailings,
restriction.
yeah.
Yeah, and the mailings, yes,
The
they're
mailings
right.
were uploaded, so
Yeah,
people were notified.
yep.
I'm confused, I don't know.
Yes.
You're recusing that one, because of Amy? Okay, that's fine.
Yep.
The next item on the agenda, deliberation on anything that closed on October 3rd, nothing closed tonight?
Are we gonna have him put together an approval on that?
On which one?
The one-
30
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yep,
Oh,
we'll
I'm
have it
sorry.
ready for next week.
Yep.
You're gonna draft an approval for that one.
We didn't close it.
Actually, we said that last week, I think, too, so they're still working on it. The next item on the agenda, deliberation on any public hearings closed on October 3rd. Nothing closed tonight. The next item on the agenda is chairman's report. I started to write up a big chairman's report. We'll save that to next time since it's getting late and I wanted to fill in some blanks. But the only good news I do want to say, because there's a commissioner that keeps asking me when Malta is opening and Gregory's Coffee's opening.
Yeah.
They're supposed to open this week.
All right.
At Malta,
Boots.
there was a piece,
Oh, Pizzeria Molto.
Yeah.
piece of Malta. There was a piece of the pizza oven that was missing. It's in Italy. I think the guy who's running it went over to
Flew over
Italy.
there,
to
brought
the
it back.
Ryder Cup. He went to the Ryder Cup, got the piece, and he's bringing it back.
Nice.
Hope that's
And
the
then
old-
with regards to Gregory's
So
Coffee.
we got something out of the Ryder Cup in
Yes.
America. One piece of a pizza, because we sure didn't get a trophy or a win or
And
even
I asked,
make it to
I
pass
asked
the
Patrick
11th hole. on
McMahon, I
17th
said,
course.
what's the hang up? He goes, to something with the pizza oven. So the guy went to Italy to the Ryder Cup. That's okay.
Perfect.
And Gregory's Coffee, they should open this week too.
Nice.
I think their coffee makers or cappuccino makers got stuck in either Sweden, Switzerland, or Germany. And theirs should be here too. Those are the big things that I want to announce with everybody. Next, director's report. Anything special?
Nothing. The other two businesses that opened up in Darien Commons last week were Sur La Table.
Which I've heard many people already talking about, how
Yep.
beautiful it is.
It is a very nice store. They have not only a retail area, but an area where you can take cooking classes.
Yeah, I heard it's very, very nice.
Yep, and that'll be, the retail's up and running, the cooking classes take a little longer. And then there was another, I think it's called Salt and Sweat.
Yeah.
Nah,
Yes?
Yeah.
Seriously?
Oh.
It's a-
no, Hammer and
Hammer
Nails.
Nails is the
Hammer and
men's
Hammer and Nails is the
place.
best, but there's another one.
But
There's
there is, which is a combination of massage, sauna, and that was approved to open as well. So Patrick McMahon of Federal Realty will be coming to the commission, what did we say, Fred? Early November? Early to mid-November,
Yeah, I think mid-November.
to button up a couple things with the project and sell
Possibly
it.
the 24th.
Yeah.
I saw an application for a liquor license in the paper the other day for 102 Heights Road. I assume that's in.
It's Pizzeria Molto.
Oh, is that it? Oh.
Yeah, I don't think
It's gonna have a disco, or no, a DJ, I think it's.
Wow. The only thing to add relative to that project is the apartments are 96% leased.
crazy.
I think there's 4 of them left. They leased the entire complex, which is 122 units in under 12 months, which is unheard of. That's obviously, you take it somewhere a little bit around 12 per month. And what else did I want to say about there? We also knew about there's a couple more retail spaces that are still available. The one thing I do want to say and compliment the commission on, at one point in time, they came forth with a proposal to put in a WeWork type co-working unit in there. The example was Greenwich has got it, so why can't Darien have it? It's on Greenwich Avenue. The one on Greenwich Avenue has closed. So it didn't work anyway. And this space that they were gonna put in, that co-working space, is Sur La Table. So we got something better. Anything else you add?
Nothing else.
Thank you.
The Wegmans project, have you looked at the plans online for that?
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
massive. It includes not only the Wegmans site, but 2 buildings in front of it.
It's the shower, I sat with the person that's right, the Mr. Shower Door guy's gone.
And the
They
one next
spent,
to it.
I think they spent, that's part of my chairman's report, I think it's $38 million to buy the land.
Yeah,
Yeah, they
It's massive.
paid a fortune for it,
and a two-story parking structure. I mean, it is massive.
yeah. We just, I don't know what we do about that. but-
How's the Costco parking lot? I was reading that they're like held up in some sort of demo permit back and forth. They can't get rid of that,
Hotels.
That hotel?
like whatever that hotel was called.
Doubletree.
Doubletree, yeah. Do we know what's going on there?
I'll find out for next week.
That's Norwalk, right?
Yep.
Yes.
People do hate that Costco parking lot.
That's for sure. Nobody goes down there. Anything to add for 2/3 for the commission?
No, sir.
Nope, okay. Our next meeting is October 10th. We just talked about that. We're gonna have Weed Beach back on the agenda for that,
We need 2 draft resolutions, a set of minutes, and
okay?
whatever else creeps up between now
And then I'll do a chairman's report on that one then.
Yep.
And then October 17th, we do not have a meeting,
That's correct.
free and clear. October 24th, the day before my son's birthday, we do have a meeting.
Yep, 2 public hearings, hopefully nothing crazy long, so
Fantastic. And then we can probably, maybe we can deliberate Weed Beach on the 10th?
yes, I'll put that on the agenda.
Yeah, try to do deliberation for Weed Beach on the 10th,
Yep.
after it closes.
So we have nothing on the 17th and 31st?
That's correct,
Correct.
and nothing on election day.
So two 2 weeks off.
3 out of 4 weeks off.
Three,
So
yeah.
business for us is slowing down, but
Big time.
I'll tell you later what business is coming down the pipeline. With that said, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Mike makes the motion. George makes the second. All those in favor?
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, TV 79.
I want to vote, take you staying here.